So let's check out a couple of videos on YouTube I've been wanting to review for a while. Now this first one is a guy named IC Weld. IC Weld is actually a really, really good welder. I've watched a lot of his stuff. And if you guys remember my buddy Chucky 2009, he was a welder, or he still is a welder. He just he used to do YouTube videos and upload them everything. And I would do some videos with him. But every time I went out and did equipment repair, if I needed a welding repair, I would always hire it out to Chucky. So let's watch this IC Weld video. He's fixing a dipper on an excavator that is completely cracked. Now this thing, it looks like it's been repaired several times. Somebody has tried to repair it, and it appears all they've done was try to weld up the crack. Now, if you take that very first little section, right, let's go back here. Right here, you can actually see that it doesn't look like it looks like the only thing they did was just weld over the top of the crack. They might have like gouged out the crack a little bit and then put some passes over it, but it didn't get full penetration on that material, and that's very thick material. It looks like 3/4 of an inch thick steel, maybe 1 inch thick steel. And whenever you're going to repair that stuff, you really have to you need to groove it all the way down to the base, to completely groove it out. Don't just groove out the top and kind of weld up the crack, because the crack probably extends all the way through the material. Now, whenever I had a similar repair, sort of like this, it was on a Schaaf excavator, which is like a German excavator. It was cracked right over by the boom, and this one actually is cracked too. In the next video, he's going to repair that. But I called Chucky, and he came out. I worked on one side, he worked on the other. We had 2 welders going. But I don't like doing that kind of repair on my own, because I'm a mechanic on things. I don't weld all the time. And if you take somebody like this guy, like IC Weld, and they do it all the freaking time, they learn little tricks of the trade. They know where the stress points are. They know what's going to need to be repaired, how it's going to need to be repaired. And they just have a lot more experience at it. Now, there's a lot of heavy equipment mechanics out there that they do have a lot of experience with it, and they're really good at it. I am not personally one of those guys. I don't have a lot of experience with structural welding on things. And so my suggestion is, anytime you have a repair like this, you develop a relationship with a welder fabricator in the area. Now you can tell on this one, he actually cut out a huge section on top. He's going to weld in a piece of plate, and it looks like he's going to cut the side and re-weld it together. I don't know exactly what he's going to do. He might cut it all the way apart. But you want to find a welder fabricator that you can develop a relationship with. Now, the reason I like to do that is because if this is my job, customer calls me, and I knew a guy like IC Weld or Chucky back in the day, I would call them and say, hey, I've got this welding job, come out, do it for me. I'm an independent guy, so at that point, these guys would come out, they would bill me directly, and I would add that bill as a welding repair to the final invoice and just add a markup to it. My standard markup on anything is about 30% for parts or anything like that. So as an example, this welder, like let's say IC Weld comes out here, and we'll use he probably charged more than this, but we'll use a good round number. We'll say it's $1,000 for the repair. Okay, so he comes out, he bills me $1,000, and then I turn around, I pay him immediately because I want to keep him happy. And when he sees my number pop up on his phone, he knows he gets paid immediately. As soon as he gets that invoice, he gets paid. I will not hire somebody out and then say, oh, well, I'll pay you as soon as I get paid on the invoice, because if you don't get paid on the invoice, then you're holding up that guy's show too. And that's not right. So, I would take that $1,000 invoice, and I would just put a line on my invoice that says welding repairs, describe the repairs that were done, the type of process that was used, and mark it up to $1,300. So I make $300 on it, like a finder's fee kind of deal. And they had the customer ended up with, in my opinion, a better deal, because you have a guy that's all he does is weld. He knows this stuff in and out, probably got 1 million certifications on it. Once you have like a dipper or something structural like that, and it cracks, all the metal around it starts doing this, and it weakens it. And so you need to cut it all away and just add new. And this is probably how come this got to the point that it's at. There was a crack, somebody welded it probably cracked again, they welded it again, did that same thing over and over and over, and eventually ended up in this state where you have to replace a lot of material. And so yeah, he did cut out, looks like probably a 10-inch, little chunk right there, welded the top in. Now he's using a MIG welder, which I really, really like. Now, there's a lot of guys on the internet, and there's a lot of guys that I've dealt with, heavy equipment repair, like, oh, you got to stick weld everything. If it's thick, you got to stick weld it. And the reason they say that is because most MIG welders that you deal with in your shop, they're like a 175 amp. You know, the big MIG welders are 250 amp. And for something like this, a lot of times you need a little more amperage. But if you look, he actually has a suitcase welder over there. And I don't know what brand that is. Looks like an older Lincoln. But the suitcase welder hooks up to his portable welder that's on his truck. I had a similar setup when I had a crane truck. I had a Lincoln Ranger 250 or 300 amp stick welder, and it came, you know, because you bought it brand new, it came with a Lincoln suitcase welder that was a 300 amp suitcase welder. So you run your leads from your suitcase welder to your portable welder, start your portable welder up, and that provides all the amperage and everything for your suitcase welder. You also have like a little gas line that runs on the back of the welder over to your bottle, and that way it's shielded gas. Now, I much prefer shielded gas when I do these kind of repairs, simply because whenever you're using flux core, you get done with your bead, you have to go through and clean up the weld in order to be able to re-weld and to do your several more passes on top of it. Same thing with stick welding. Stick welding, you're using about a 12-inch long rod, and once you run out of that rod, you have to clean up, you know, descale your weld, and then sometimes you have to re-groove into it. You have to start, you know, your weld back into it, and like it's time consuming. With a MIG welder, you just pull the trigger, and if it's shielded gas, you pull the trigger, you run the entire bead, you know, 47 feet long, whatever you want. Hit it lightly with a stainless steel wire brush, and then weld right over the top of it again, and you're good to go. As long as you have gas, as long as you have wire, and as long as you have fuel in your welder, as long as you pull that trigger, it's good. And I love that setup. But a lot of guys, like I said, there's some kind of like redneck bullshit mythology when it comes to, oh, I have to have a stick welder. You know, my grandpa's got these secret green 79, 47 rods that nobody's ever heard of. And this is the end all be all of all welding rods. And it's the best, blah, 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 whatever. I've heard it all. But he did a pretty good repair on it. Now that's the kind of repair, if I hire somebody out, that's what I want to see. If I hired this guy out and this is my job and it was cracked and somebody came out and they just welded up the crack, I'd be pissed. I'm like, no, you know, I'll pay you for your time, but I'll never hire you out again, because I've seen a lot of equipment. I know how it needs to be repaired. I know what's going to cause problems later, and that is not what I'm trying to do for my customers. I'm not trying, you know, I want this to be an end-all, be-all repair. That's it. It's completely done. Now, if we go to a little bit farther in this video, he's going to show us that the base of the boom is actually cracked. And in the next video, he's going to fix that. So go ahead and pop that up. See how he's going to fix that. Now, this one is a hell of a repair, because that's a massive crack. And that is one of the most... there's more force at this end of the boom than anywhere else on that boom. So you need to make sure that you are absolutely good at what you do and you know what you're doing. You also, if you look around this area, there's a whole bunch of critical components. There's rubber hoses, there's metal lines, all sorts of stuff. You really need to make sure that you got all that stuff protected and covered, because that bottom of the machine collects like a lot of leaves, collects a lot of hydraulic fluid, and when you're welding, you can actually set the machine on fire. Now, it looks like for whatever reason he decided just to weld this crack up. It's probably just because of the area that it's in. There's a lot of thicker material there. He is stick welding on it, and I'd be curious. I don't know why he went to stick welding on this and not MIG welding. Maybe it's a clearance issue or a preheat issue. I don't know. Again, this is why I freaking hire out welders on this stuff, because I don't know. I don't do this stuff for a living, and it's just better, you know, to develop that relationship. And also, these guys work on a lot of equipment like this. So if you develop a relationship with a local welder fabricator that works on a lot of equipment that does a mechanic on stuff, whenever he runs into the stuff and he likes you, he will give your card to them or your phone number to them, and then you get a customer out of it, and then you both scratch each other's backs. When you call him, he knows he gets paid immediately, and hopefully when he calls you, he gets you good customer leads, and, you know, doesn't waste your time with stuff.
We're going to do uphill welding, and that is one thing that Chucky taught me. I used to always do downhill welding on everything just because it was easier and it looked prettier. But on really, really thicker stuff, you really want to do uphill. I guess it gets more penetration, and everybody likes a little more penetration, you know. So he's going to do a couple of passes here. Now you tell he's got a little needle scaler. That's what he's using to descale his welds every time. That's the reason. One of the reasons I don't like stick welders. I like MIG welders because the MIG welder, you can just pull the trigger. It's shielded. It's really, really clean. But, you know, I'm sure he has his reasons, and he is a much more capable, better welder than I am, so I'm not going to second guess this dude. But you can tell that's a nasty freaking crack, man. I would almost, at this point, I would probably tell the customer we need to pull the entire boom off this machine to weld it up and get it fixed correctly. I don't think grooving this out and just welding it right there is going to be, I don't think that's going to work that well, honestly. I think they're going to have more problems with it later. But I haven't been listening to the video. He might have talked about it, and the customer might not have approved that repair. He might have told them, hey, we need to pull this boom off, do it right. They might have said, hey, just weld the crack up, and we'll deal with it. So that might be what he's doing. That does happen a lot. He's got his little welding blanket down there, catch all the slag. Hopefully it doesn't catch anything on fire. But really good welds. He's got a really good cover pass on there. Hopefully it stays good for the customer. But again, to me, the best repair on this would have been to take that entire boom off and then basically do what he did on a dipper, like repatch in new material on that, because it's a tremendous amount of force. People do not realize how much force a freaking excavator puts out. I mean, it is the strongest piece of equipment on any job site. A bulldozer is good at just pushing stuff, but when it comes down to it, the amount of force that an excavator can exert is incredible. So I've seen excavators go up and topple over trees like they're nothing. I mean, just use the bucket, come up, grab the tree by the stump, and just pull it out of the ground. And I've seen big bulldozers run into trees and the tracks just sit there and spin. But they're amazing pieces of machinery. I mean, this area right here, that boom that's a lot of force. But I'm real curious. This is a 3-year-old video. I don't know if he's made an update video to this or if he ever talked about it again. But man, if you guys check out this guy, Icy Weld, go subscribe to him. He's a wealth of knowledge. And Chucky too. Chucky's actually making, he's not making new videos. He's reposting his old videos. And I think it's called the Official Farming Welding Archive or something like that. I'll put a link down in the description. Go ahead and check this out. But definitely, man, check out Icy Weld. The dude does really good work, and I think he's based out of Texas too. I think he's down in Austin, San Antonio area. I'd love to meet him someday because he does incredible work. I mean, that's a beautiful weld right there. Well, hope you liked the video. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and get out and fix it.